Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight we're diving into one of the most mysterious biological riddles in human history, Rh-negative blood. The genetic anomaly that seems to defy evolution, challenge pregnancy, puzzle scientists, and ignite ancient legends. Only about 15% of the world carries it. Fewer still understand what it truly means. Is it just a mutation, an evolutionary advantage, a hidden thread in survival history, or simply another reminder that the human body is far more complex than we dare to admit? In this deep, calm history for sleep, we'll trace the story of Rh-negative blood from laboratory discoveries and royal bloodlines to ancient myths, golden blood, and the quiet resilience written into our DNA. This is not just a history for sleep documentary. It is a journey through evolutionary mysteries, rare blood types, and the invisible connection that binds every heartbeat across time. So before you get comfortable, take a gentle moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if these deep sleep history stories help you find peace, sleep better, or simply reflect on our shared journey through time. Now, close your eyes, let your breathing slow, and imagine the quiet rhythm of blood flowing through your veins. Because tonight, history is not something you read about, it's something that lives inside you. Imagine, just for a moment, that your body quietly refuses the very life it helps create. Imagine that within your blood flows a subtle absence, something so small it cannot be seen with the naked eye, yet powerful enough to shape pregnancies, alter medical history, and inspire generations of whispered theories. Science calls it risk. History sometimes calls it a trace of something older, something unresolved. Tonight, as we begin this gentle exploration in true history for sleep fashion, we step into what I like to call the paradox of creation. Because Rh-negative blood history does not begin with myths or superpowers. It begins with a question. Why does this blood type exist at all? Most human beings carry what is known as the Rh factor, a protein on the surface of red blood cells, first identified in the 20th century. It was named after experiments involving Rhesus monkeys, where scientists noticed a similar antigen pattern. Nearly every primate species carries this marker. It appears to be part of our biological inheritance, woven into the evolutionary tapestry connecting us to earlier branches of life. And yet, around 15% of the world's population does not carry this antigen. 15%. Not 1 in a million, not a rare mutation fading into obscurity. A consistent minority that has existed across continents and centuries. In the soft light of history, that number feels both small and significant. Small enough to be considered unusual, large enough to feel intentional. If you are among that 15%, you belong to a quiet minority that has puzzled researchers for decades. In medical terms, Rh-negative blood simply means the absence of the Rhd antigen. There is no hidden aura, no visible sign, just an absence where something is usually present. But biology is rarely indifferent to absence. The presence or absence of that single protein can determine compatibility in blood transfusions. More strikingly, it can influence pregnancy. When an Rh-negative mother carries an Rh-positive child, her immune system may recognize the baby's blood as foreign. In some cases, without medical intervention, her body can produce antibodies that attack the developing fetus. It is a phenomenon modern medicine now manages carefully. But before the discovery of Rh incompatibility in the 1930s and 1940s, such pregnancies often ended in tragedy, miscarriages, stillbirths, infant loss without explanation. Imagine living centuries ago, unaware that within your veins flowed a quiet biological difference that could turn motherhood into a battlefield. In that silence, it is easy to understand how mystery grows, how stories begin, how a simple medical anomaly can become something more in the human imagination. But let us slow down. This is history for sleep, not history for fear. Evolution does not operate with intention in the way myths do. It experiments, it shifts, it branches. So why would nature allow a blood type that appears at first glance to complicate reproduction? That is the paradox. Some researchers suggest that Rh negativity may represent an ancient mutation that persisted because it did not prevent survival overall. Others observe that the highest concentrations of Rh negative blood appear in certain regions, particularly among populations in parts of Europe. Basque communities in Spain and France are often mentioned in discussions of Rh negative blood history, as they show one of the highest frequencies in the world. Is this evidence of a separate lineage, a hidden migration, or simply the normal genetic drift of isolated populations over time? When we map the blood across geography, patterns emerge. But patterns do not always reveal intention. They reveal movement, isolation, intermarriage, survival. And so we return to the quiet question that lingers beneath it all. If evolution generally preserves traits that enhance survival, why maintain a factor that can create reproductive conflict? Is it truly a conflict, or merely a side effect of diversity? Perhaps the paradox is not that Rh negative blood exists, but that we expect nature to follow neat narratives. In truth, evolution is not tidy. It does not eliminate every inconvenience. It preserves what survives often enough. And 15% is not a mistake. It is a footprint, a reminder that humanity has never been biologically uniform. As you settle deeper into this story, allow the tension to soften. There is no alarm here, no hidden threat, only a mystery that modern medicine has largely learned to manage. The superpower, if one insists on using that word, may not lie in immunity or psychic sensitivity or folklore. It may lie in something quieter, the reminder that even within something as fundamental as blood, there are variations that defy simple explanation, variations that invite curiosity. And curiosity, after all, is one of the most human traits of all. So, as the night deepens and your breathing slows, we return gently to the paradox of creation, to that quiet 15% whose blood tells a slightly different story. In the long arc of Rh negative blood history, what unsettles people most is not the science itself, but the implication that something in our biological inheritance does not align perfectly with the expected evolutionary script. Nearly all primates share the Rh antigen. It is so common that its absence feels to some like a missing page in a familiar book. Yet evolution is not a single straight line. It is a branching river, splitting, rejoining, shifting course over millennia. When scientists first began mapping blood types across continents, they were not searching for superpowers. They were trying to understand transfusion safety, maternal health, and patterns of inheritance. What they found instead was variation. In parts of northern Spain and southwestern France, especially among the Basque population, the percentage of Rh negative individuals rises significantly above the global average. In certain Celtic-descended regions of Ireland and Scotland, the frequency is also higher than expected. These clusters sparked curiosity. Was this evidence of an isolated ancestral group that preserved an ancient mutation? Or was it simply what geneticists call the founder effect, when a small population carrying a particular trait expands and passes it on disproportionately? In the soft glow of history for sleep, we do not rush to dramatic conclusions. We linger in nuance. Because the human mind has always been uncomfortable with ambiguity. When something does not fit neatly into the dominant narrative, stories emerge to fill the space. Over time, Rh-negative blood became woven into folklore. Some claimed it marked descendants of lost civilizations. Others suggested extraterrestrial origins. A few even described it as evidence of a hidden royal lineage, pointing to European dynasties affected by hemophilia and speaking of so-called blue blood. But mythology often grows in the shadows of partial understanding. Hemophilia, for example, is linked to mutations on the X chromosome, not to the Rh factor itself. The tragedies that afflicted royal families were not proof of alien ancestry or secret powers. They were reminders of how fragile genetics can be when lineages remain tightly interwoven. Still, the emotional pull of being part of a rare group is powerful. To be among 15% can feel like standing slightly apart from the crowd. There is comfort in belonging to a defined majority, but there is also a quiet allure in being part of a minority that invites questions. That allure fuels the language of superpowers. Some modern claims suggest that Rh-negative individuals possess heightened intuition, stronger immune responses, or unusual psychological traits. Yet when examined carefully through the lens of peer-reviewed research, these assertions dissolve into anecdote rather than evidence. The real story is subtler and in many ways more fascinating. The pregnancy paradox, once a source of heartbreak, is now largely preventable through medical intervention, such as Rh immunoglobulin treatment. What was once a silent biological conflict is now a manageable condition. That shift alone is a testament to how far science has come. The so-called paradox of nature becomes less a sign of rebellion against evolution and more a reminder that diversity carries both challenges and resilience. Nature does not engineer perfection, it experiments across generations. Sometimes a variation appears neutral in most contexts, but complex in specific circumstances. That does not make it supernatural, it makes it human. Perhaps the deeper mystery is not why Rh-negative blood exists, but why we instinctively search for extraordinary explanations when confronted with biological difference. In the quiet hours, as you drift closer to sleep, consider this. 15% of humanity carries a subtle absence in their blood, and yet the world continues. Civilizations rise and fall. Children are born safely with modern care. The anomaly becomes part of the ordinary rhythm of life. The superpower, if there is one, may simply be adaptability, the ability of medicine to respond, the capacity of communities to learn, the resilience of mothers whose pregnancies are now protected by knowledge rather than threatened by mystery. Rh-negative blood history, when stripped of sensationalism, becomes something profoundly grounding. It reminds us that we are shaped by countless small variations, most of which do not divide us, but enrich the mosaic of humanity. The blood that shouldn't exist does exist, not as defiance of evolution, but as evidence of its complexity. And in that complexity, there is something quietly beautiful. Because the more we understand about our differences, the less frightening they become. And perhaps that is the true lesson hidden within this paradox. Not that some among us are superhuman, but that all of us are products of a long, intricate, and still unfolding story written in the language of cells and time. In 1937, inside a quiet laboratory filled with glass slides, microscopes, and the faint metallic scent of blood, a discovery unfolded that would forever change the way we understand ourselves. Not in the dramatic flash of lightning or the roar of revelation, but in the slow patience of observation. If Chapter 1 invited us into the paradox of Rh-negative blood history, then this chapter invites us into the room where the mystery first gained a name. The room belonged, in part, to Karl Landsteiner. By then, he was no stranger to blood. Decades earlier, in 1901, he had already made one of the most important contributions in medical science, identifying the ABO blood groups in what became known as the blood type discovery that saved countless lives through safer transfusions. Before Landsteiner, transfusions were a gamble. After him, they became a calculated science. But even a brilliant mind does not solve every puzzle at once. The story of the Rh factor would require another set of eyes, another patient curiosity. Enter Alexander Wiener, a younger researcher who worked closely with Landsteiner. Together, in 1937, they began investigating why certain blood transfusions still failed, despite matching ABO types. It was a quiet inconsistency, a pattern of reactions that did not fit neatly within the known categories. In the soft glow of what we might now call a sleep documentary, imagine the scene not as sterile and cold, but as intimate and focused. Two scientists leaning over samples, noticing that when blood from certain individuals mixed with others, agglutination occurred, clumping like a warning whispered by cells. The question was simple but heavy. What are we missing? Their investigation led them to experiments involving Rhesus monkeys. When they injected rabbit serum with blood from these monkeys and then introduced it to human samples, they observed a reaction in many but not all individuals. Most humans shared a similar antigen pattern to the Rhesus monkeys, but some did not. There it was again, the absence, the anomaly, the factor that would later be called Rh. The name, drawn from the Rhesus monkey, was more symbolic than literal, but it endured. What matters more is the implication. The majority of humans share this antigen. In evolutionary terms, we share genetic traits with primates that stretch back millions of years. We share DNA sequences, structural proteins, biological markers. The Rh factor seemed to reinforce that continuity, except for those who lacked it. In that moment, the narrative subtly shifted. If most humans and Rhesus monkeys share this marker, what does it mean that some humans do not? It did not imply alien blood or supernatural divergence, as later folklore would suggest. It implied variation, mutation, the natural branching of inheritance. But to the human imagination, absence can feel louder than presence. Landsteiner's discovery of the Rh factor did not immediately ignite public fascination. It was, at first, a scientific clarification, another layer in the complex architecture of blood. Yet its consequences were profound. Suddenly, unexplained cases of hemolytic disease in newborns began to make sense. Mothers whose bodies had seemed to reject pregnancies were no longer trapped in superstition or silent guilt. There was a biological explanation. There was a mechanism. There was, eventually, a solution. In this sense, the discovery was not just about blood type discovery. It was about compassion, about lifting the weight of mystery from families who had endured loss without answers. And this is where authority matters. Before we wander into the more speculative theories that swirl around Rh-negative blood history, we must anchor ourselves in this moment of clarity. The Rh factor is not myth. It is measurable. It is testable. It is observable under a microscope. The story begins not in secret archives or ancient temples, but in a laboratory where curiosity met patience. As you listen, perhaps you can feel the steady rhythm beneath the narrative, the quiet determination of scientists who were not chasing headlines, but patterns, not superpowers, but explanations. In the stillness of 1937, something subtle yet enduring was named. And once something is named, it becomes part of human understanding. It becomes less frightening, less mystical, more grounded. And yet, even grounded truths can ripple outward into imagination. Because when we learn that most humans share a biological marker with Rhesus monkeys and that a minority does not, the mind cannot help but ask why. Not in panic, but in wonder. And so the investigation did not end in 1937. It expanded quietly, like ripples widening across still water. Once Karl Landsteiner and Alexander Wiener identified what would become known as the RH factor, the scientific world did what it does best when confronted with something both simple and profound. It tested, retested, and observed. What had begun as a laboratory irregularity slowly transformed into one of the most important refinements in blood type discovery in modern medicine. In the years that followed, researchers confirmed that the RH system was not a single on or off switch, but a complex cluster of antigens. The D antigen, the one most commonly associated with being Rh positive or Rh negative, became the focal point. If it was present, a person was classified as Rh positive. If absent, Rh negative. Such a small molecular detail, and yet its implications echoed across maternity wards and operating rooms. In the style of a sleep documentary, let us slow down and imagine the first time doctors truly understood what this meant. A newborn struggling with jaundice, a mother grieving repeated unexplained losses, a physician reviewing the new research and realizing that the immune system of an Rh negative mother could produce antibodies after exposure to Rh positive blood. Not because her body was cruel, not because nature was flawed, but because the immune system does what it is designed to do. It recognizes what is different. It defends what it perceives as foreign. The tragedy was not in the existence of the Rh factor, it was in the absence of knowledge. Once the mechanism was understood, prevention became possible. By the mid-20th century, treatments such as Rh immunoglobulin were developed, protecting pregnancies that might once have ended in heartbreak. This is where authority deepens trust. Rh-negative blood history is not built on speculation alone. It is built on decades of clinical observation, controlled trials, and measurable outcomes. And yet the emotional tension remains, because there is something undeniably poetic about the idea that most humans share a specific antigen pattern with Rhesus monkeys, reinforcing our evolutionary kinship, while a consistent minority does not. We share over 98% of our DNA with chimpanzees. We share structural proteins and biological pathways across species. The Rh antigens seem to be another thread in that tapestry. But evolution is not uniform. Mutations occur. Genetic drift reshapes populations. Isolation amplifies certain traits. The absence of the D antigen does not erase our shared ancestry. It simply reminds us that ancestry is not identical in every detail. And here, the detective story becomes something subtler. Not a search for hidden civilizations, but a search for pattern recognition. Scientists began mapping frequencies across Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Americas. They examined how inheritance followed Mendelian principles, how Rh-negative parents could produce Rh-negative children, how compatibility patterns revealed predictable genetic logic. The anomaly became structured. The mystery gained boundaries. But even when boundaries are drawn, imagination lingers, because 15% is large enough to be noticed, large enough to create identity. In modern online communities, individuals with Rh-negative blood sometimes speak of heightened intuition, unusual physical traits, or a sense of being different. Yet when viewed through rigorous data, these narratives dissolve into personal interpretation rather than reproducible science. The true story is quieter, but perhaps more powerful. The discovery by Karl Landsteiner did not reveal a secret superpower. It revealed a secret vulnerability, and then offered a solution. It transformed confusion into clarity. And that transformation is, in its own way, extraordinary. As you rest deeper into this narrative, consider the elegance of that shift. In 1937, a pattern was noticed. In the decades that followed, that pattern prevented suffering. The blood that once seemed to reject life became understood as a variation within life. And in that understanding, fear softened into knowledge. So before we move toward the more speculative edges of this topic in later chapters, we anchor ourselves here, in the laboratory light of evidence, in the steady hands of scientists who were not chasing myth, but mechanism. Because in the end, the most enduring superpower is not hidden ancestry or mystical divergence. It is the human capacity to observe, to question, and to transform uncertainty into care. There is a silent tragedy that unfolded for centuries before anyone understood its name. A quiet sorrow that passed from mother to child, not through cruelty, not through intention, but through biology. Imagine a woman in a small village hundreds of years ago. She carries her child beneath her heart, feels the fluttering movements, dreams of a future she cannot yet see. The birth is difficult, but the child survives. And then, days later, something changes. The baby weakens, jaundice deepens, breathing slows. No explanation, no visible wound, only confusion and grief. This is the human face of what we now call Rhesus disease history, and at the center of it lies what modern medicine names the pregnancy paradox. If Chapter 2 grounded us in the laboratory discovery of the Rh factor, Chapter 3 invites us into the emotional terrain that discovery eventually illuminated. Because once the Rh system was understood, a pattern emerged that had haunted families for generations. When an Rh-negative mother carries an Rh-positive child, the first pregnancy often proceeds without catastrophe. But during childbirth, or sometimes during minor bleeding events, small amounts of the baby's Rh-positive blood can enter the mother's bloodstream. Her immune system, ever vigilant, recognizes the D antigen as foreign. It responds, not with malice, but with defense. It produces antibodies. In subsequent pregnancies, if another Rh-positive fetus develops, those antibodies can cross the placenta. They can attack the baby's red blood cells, leading to hemolytic disease of the newborn. The child's blood breaks down faster than it can be replaced. Severe anemia develops. Organs strain. Without intervention, survival becomes uncertain. In the quiet voice of a sleep documentary, we do not sensationalize this. We acknowledge it with gravity. Nature can be harsh, stoic in its indifference. The immune system is not aware of motherhood as an emotional bond. It knows only recognition and response. It identifies difference and acts. That is its design. The tragedy is not that the body defends itself. The tragedy is that, without knowledge, this defense once came at a terrible cost. For centuries, communities may have noticed patterns without understanding them. A mother whose first child lived, but whose later pregnancies ended in repeated loss. Whispers of curses, suspicions of divine punishment, quiet shame carried in solitude. In reality, it was a biological interaction invisible to the naked eye. The pregnancy paradox was never a moral failing. It was an immunological equation. And yet its emotional weight is immense because it touches the most primal human instinct, protection of offspring. When we explore Rhesus disease history, we are not exploring myth. We are exploring the thin line between survival and vulnerability written into ourselves. This is where emotional resonance deepens engagement.
The story is not abstract, it is intimate. It reminds us that evolution does not prioritize comfort, it prioritizes function. The immune system evolved to detect threats, to neutralize invaders, to preserve the organism. It does not distinguish between pathogen and fetus when a specific antigen appears unfamiliar. That is not cruelty, it is precision without context. In earlier centuries, without transfusions, without neonatal care, without immunoglobulin therapy, many infants affected by severe Rh incompatibility did not survive. Some developed hydrops fatalis, a condition where fluid accumulated in tissues, causing swelling and organ failure. Others were born with severe jaundice that progressed rapidly. The survival of a child depended on variables no one could see or control. Imagine the resilience required of those mothers, the stoic endurance of repeated grief without explanation. Here, the concept of superpower dissolves into something far more grounded. The true power lies not in mystical bloodlines, but in the endurance of women who carried life despite uncertainty, in the evolution of medicine that eventually intervened, in the collective determination to understand what once seemed like fate. As you continue listening, let your mind rest in this truth. What appeared for centuries as a curse was in fact a biological dialogue between two immune systems, a conversation written in antigens and antibodies, a conversation that science would eventually learn to translate.
And yet, even once the mechanism was understood, the emotional shadow of the pregnancy paradox lingered. Knowledge does not erase memory overnight. For generations before the Rh factor was named, women endured what felt like fate written against them. A first healthy child, followed by losses that seemed almost personal, almost targeted. In the language of older societies, it was easy to interpret repeated tragedy as curse or punishment. But in the calm clarity of modern science, Rhesus disease history reveals something far less mystical and far more profound: the immune system's loyalty to survival above all else. The antibodies produced by an Rh-negative mother after exposure to Rh-positive blood do not carry intention. They do not choose their target. They circulate quietly, prepared to respond to what they recognize as unfamiliar. When a subsequent Rh-positive pregnancy begins, those antibodies can cross the placenta with silent efficiency. They bind to the fetus's red blood cells. They mark them for destruction. The baby's developing body attempts to compensate, accelerating red blood cell production. The liver and spleen enlarge. Fluid may accumulate. The small heart works harder than it should. In severe cases, hydrops fatalis develops, a condition that once carried devastating mortality. This is the harsh arithmetic of nature. No malice, no mercy, only mechanism. In a sleep documentary tone, we approach this not with fear, but with reverence for truth. The body's defense system evolved in a world where pathogens threaten survival at every turn. To recognize foreign antigens and neutralize them was essential. That same precision in rare combinations of maternal and fetal blood types created unintended consequence. The pregnancy paradox is not evidence of flawed design, it is evidence of competing biological priorities: protection of the mother's body, survival of the fetus. When those priorities misalign, conflict emerges. And yet, even within this conflict, resilience appears. By the mid-20th century, physicians developed Rh immunoglobulin therapy, a preventive treatment administered to Rh-negative mothers during and after pregnancy. This injection works quietly, preventing the mother's immune system from becoming sensitized to Rh-positive blood.
In effect, it interrupts the cycle before antibodies can form. What once unfolded as silent tragedy over thousands of years became largely preventable within a few decades. Consider the emotional magnitude of that shift, from helplessness to intervention, from superstition to strategy. The survival rate of affected infants increased dramatically. Hospitals no longer filled with unexplained cases of severe newborn anemia. The curse dissolved into chemistry. This transformation is central to understanding Rh-negative blood history. It demonstrates that the story is not one of supernatural rebellion against evolution, but of incremental scientific clarity. And yet, the emotional imprint remains powerful. The image of a mother's body attacking her child strikes deeply at our protective instincts. It unsettles us because it feels inverted. Motherhood symbolizes safety, nourishment, shelter. The idea that within that shelter lies potential conflict challenges our sense of order. But nature does not operate according to symbolism. It operates according to biological rules. In that realization, there is a stoic lesson. We do not control the mechanisms written into ourselves. We control only how we respond once we understand them. The ancient mothers who endured repeated loss did not fail. They were navigating a reality no one had yet decoded. Modern mothers who receive preventive treatment are beneficiaries of collective learning. The true superpower, if one must use that word, is not hidden in rare blood alone. It is hidden in awareness, in adaptation, in the human refusal to accept unexplained suffering as permanent. As you drift closer to rest, let this chapter settle gently in your mind. The pregnancy paradox once carried fear because it was invisible. Today, it carries insight. The blood that seemed to reject life is now understood as part of life's complexity. And perhaps that is the quiet message beneath the tragedy. Nature can be severe, but understanding softens severity. Knowledge does not erase hardship from the past, but it transforms the future. In the end, Rhesus disease history is not a story of curse. It is a story of translation, of science learning to interpret what the immune system had been saying all along. And in that translation, mothers and children alike found protection where once there was only mystery.
And as the science settled into clarity, another narrative began to shimmer at the edges of history. Not in laboratories this time, but in palaces, in gilded halls lit by chandeliers, where portraits of ancestors lined velvet walls, and lineage was guarded as fiercely as territory. Why were European royal families so obsessed with preserving what they called pure blood? Did they believe they carried something rare, something different, something closer to destiny itself? This is where royal bloodline history intertwines with the language of blue blood meaning, and where speculation has often blurred the boundary between genetics and grandeur. The phrase blue blood did not begin as a medical term. It emerged from Spanish aristocracy, where the term sangre azul described nobles whose pale skin revealed visible blue veins beneath, a visual contrast to those who labored under the sun. Over time, blue blood meaning evolved to signify elite ancestry, unbroken lineage, inherited authority. Blood became metaphor, lineage became power. But in the 19th century, blood also became literal in a way no royal family could ignore. At the center of the story stands Queen Victoria of Britain. She reigned over an empire, but within her genetic code lay a silent mutation. Hemophilia, a blood clotting disorder carried on the X chromosome, appeared in her descendants and spread across European thrones through strategic marriages. Princes in Spain, Germany, and Russia inherited the condition. Minor injuries became life-threatening. Internal bleeding could follow a simple fall.
The so-called royal disease reshaped dynastic politics. It altered succession lines. It even contributed indirectly to political instability in Russia through the illness of Tsarevich Alexei, son of Tsar Nicholas II. In sleep documentary fashion, we do not rush this narrative. We sit with it. Imagine the anxiety within those palaces. A prince heir to a throne, fragile in ways the public could not see. Doctors summoned discreetly, mothers fearing each bruise. Blood, once symbol of strength and divine right, becoming symbol of vulnerability. Over time, some observers began linking hemophilia and Rh-negative blood in popular imagination. The logic seemed seductive. Royal families practiced intermarriage to preserve lineage. Genetic conditions became concentrated. Rh-negative blood, already seen as rare and mysterious, was sometimes rumored to be more common among aristocracy. Was there a hidden connection? Did royal blood carry something distinct from the masses? In the language of elite secrets, it is tempting to believe that ruling families guarded more than crowns, that they possessed a biological inheritance different from commoners. But here, we must remain anchored in evidence. Hemophilia is caused by mutations affecting clotting factors, specifically factor 8 or 9 depending on the type. It is inherited in an X-linked recessive pattern. The Rh factor, by contrast, is determined by the presence or absence of the D antigen on red blood cells. The two are genetically independent. One does not cause the other. Yet the emotional symbolism is powerful. Royal bloodline history is filled with attempts to maintain purity through marriage within a limited pool. Over generations, this increased the likelihood of recessive disorders manifesting. The tragedy of hemophilia in European courts was not evidence of divine difference, it was evidence of genetic bottlenecks. And yet, the aura persists. Because humans are drawn to hierarchy, we are fascinated by the idea that blood can carry destiny, that within certain veins flows authority, brilliance, or even supernatural favor. The association between Rh-negative blood and royalty gained momentum in alternative circles, not because of rigorous data, but because it satisfied a psychological desire to belong to something rare, to feel connected to crowns and castles, to imagine that 15% of humanity carries an echo of forgotten aristocracy. As you listen, allow the velvet curtains of myth to part gently. There is no need to tear them down, only to see clearly through them. The story of blue blood is less about secret superpowers and more about the fragility hidden behind privilege. The very effort to preserve lineage sometimes magnified vulnerability. Power did not immunize against biology. Titles did not override inheritance. In that realization, there is a quiet humility.
And yet, even after we separate hemophilia from the Rh factor, even after we ground royal bloodline history in genetics rather than legend, the fascination does not fade. It shifts. Because the idea of blue blood meaning has never been purely medical. It has always been psychological. It speaks to our longing to believe that power, intelligence, destiny, or even mystery can be inherited in the bloodstream. When we look at European royal houses through the lens of Rh-negative blood history, what we truly see is not hidden superiority, but the cost of controlled lineage. For centuries, alliances were forged not by love, but by strategy. Marriages bound kingdoms together. Cousins wed cousins. The pool narrowed. Traits, both beneficial and harmful, became amplified. In such environments, rare characteristics could appear more frequently simply because the gene pool was small. That includes recessive disorders. That may include certain blood type distributions. But frequency within a small circle does not equal divine distinction. It equals genetic probability. In the quiet style of a sleep documentary, let us imagine a different scene.
Not a coronation, but a private chamber. A queen holding her fragile son, aware that his body carries a vulnerability invisible to the world outside. Physicians whispering in Latin, advisors calculating succession plans, the illusion of invincibility dissolving behind heavy curtains. Royal blood was never immune to biology. If anything, it was more exposed to its consequences. And here lies the emotional inversion. The very families who spoke of purity were often the most genetically constrained. The obsession with keeping bloodlines clean paradoxically increased the concentration of inherited conditions. The lesson is not mystical, it is mathematical. And yet, the myth of elite blood persists because it resonates with something ancient in us. Throughout history, rulers have claimed divine right. Pharaohs were gods in human form. Emperors were sons of heaven. Kings were anointed by sacred oil. Blood became shorthand for legitimacy. To question blood was to question authority. In that context, any biological distinction could be interpreted as confirmation of status. When Rh-negative blood entered popular discourse in the 20th century, it arrived into a world already primed to romanticize difference. A rare blood type became, in some circles, a badge of hidden nobility. Conspiracy theories blossomed, suggesting that certain ruling families possessed disproportionate Rh-negative ancestry. But when researchers examined actual population data, no consistent evidence supported a uniquely royal distribution. Rh-negative blood appears across social classes, continents, and cultures. It is neither confined to castles nor absent from cottages. The allure, however, remains powerful. To imagine oneself connected to ancient thrones through biology is intoxicating. It transforms ordinary ancestry into epic narrative. It reframes 15% not as minority, but as select. This is the viral pulse beneath the topic. Not fear, but elevation. Not survival anxiety, but identity enhancement. And yet, in the calm rhythm of history for sleep, we gently return to equilibrium. The true story of blue blood meaning is less about secret superiority and more about human projection. We project meaning onto biology. We assign hierarchy to variation. We seek patterns that confirm our desire for significance. But biology itself is indifferent to rank. The same red blood cells circulate in monarch and merchant alike. The same antigens determine compatibility regardless of crown or coin. If anything, Rh-negative blood history reveals the opposite of elitism. It reveals shared vulnerability. Even queens faced miscarriage. Even princes bled. Even empires could not legislate genetics. There is something quietly leveling in that realization. Power could command armies, but not mutation. Authority could sign decrees, but not rewrite DNA. In that sense, blood becomes the great equalizer, not because it makes us identical, but because it subjects us all to the same biological rules. As this chapter settles, perhaps the question shifts. Not why royalty guarded blood so fiercely, but why we continue to romanticize it. The answer may lie less in science and more in storytelling. Blood carries narrative weight. It symbolizes continuity, inheritance, destiny. But when examined under a microscope, it is simply cells and proteins interacting according to physical law. And that, strangely, is even more awe-inspiring, because it means the drama of history was always carried in ordinary vessels. The myth of blue blood dissolves into a deeper truth. We are not separated by mystical fluids. We are connected by shared complexity. And whatever secrets once echoed through palace corridors, the real power was never in being different from humanity. It was in being subject to the same fragile biology as everyone else.
And as the palaces of Europe fade into twilight, we travel south toward a landscape carved by mountains and mist, where history feels older than the nations that surround it. Between the borders of France and Spain lives a people whose language does not resemble Latin, nor Germanic, nor any other Indo-European tongue. A people who call their language Euskara and their homeland Euskal Herria. And within this quiet region lies one of the most persistent threads in Rh- blood history. The Basque people are often mentioned in discussions not because of myth, but because of data. Multiple studies throughout the 20th century observed that the frequency of Rh- blood among Basque populations is significantly higher than the global average. In some areas, estimates have ranged between 25 to 35%, nearly double the worldwide figure of roughly 15%. In the soft cadence of ancient mysteries for sleep, this detail feels almost cinematic: a secluded culture, a unique language, a distinctive blood type distribution. It sounds like the beginning of a legend. But let us move gently, carefully, without rushing toward grand conclusions. The Basque people history stretches deep into pre-Roman Europe. Archaeological evidence suggests that their ancestors inhabited the Western Pyrenees long before the Roman Empire expanded across the Iberian Peninsula. When Latin spread across most of Europe, evolving into Spanish, French, Italian, and Portuguese, Euskara remained linguistically isolated. It is considered a language isolate, meaning it has no confirmed genetic relationship to any other known language family. To linguists, this is extraordinary. To storytellers, it is irresistible. Because isolation invites speculation. If a people's language does not connect neatly to surrounding tongues, perhaps their origins are older. Perhaps they represent a remnant of pre-Indo-European Europe. Perhaps they carry genetic traits that survived waves of migration and conquest. And here, geography plays its quiet role. The Pyrenees Mountains are not merely scenic. For centuries, they functioned as natural barriers. Valleys remained relatively enclosed. Communities intermarried within limited networks. Cultural continuity was preserved. In such conditions, certain genetic traits can become more concentrated, not through mystical intervention, but through population structure. When scientists examined blood type distributions in the 20th century, they found that the Basque region indeed displayed higher frequencies of Rh- individuals compared to neighboring populations. This did not mean exclusivity. It did not mean that all Basque people are Rh-. It meant that within this specific geographic and historical context, the trait persisted at elevated levels. The question that lingers, however, is why? Why would this particular region preserve a higher percentage? The simplest explanation often remains the most powerful: genetic drift. When a relatively small ancestral group carries a certain allele and remains geographically or culturally semi-isolated, that allele can become more common over generations. Add limited outward migration and a strong sense of identity, and the pattern stabilizes. Yet even as science offers measured answers, imagination breathes between the lines. In the rhythm of a sleep documentary, picture a Basque village at dusk, stone houses clustered along a hillside, the sound of a skata spoken in quiet conversation.
a language whose roots predate empires, a community whose genetic profile reflects centuries of continuity. It feels, for a moment, like stepping into a lost world, not because it is disconnected from humanity, but because it preserves a fragment of ancient Europe that resisted complete assimilation. This is where the viral allure emerges, to discover a people whose blood type distribution differs noticeably from the global norm awakens curiosity. It suggests hidden chapters, forgotten migrations, stories buried beneath mountains. But as always, we remain anchored. Higher frequency does not imply extraterrestrial origin. It does not confirm secret ancestry. It reflects demographic history. Basque people history is remarkable, not because it proves supernatural divergence, but because it illustrates how geography and culture shape genetics over time. As you listen, let the mountains remain in your mind. Let the idea settle gently. Sometimes, mystery is not born from secrecy, but from survival.
And yet, even when genetic drift offers a reasonable explanation, the Basque region continues to hold a certain quiet magnetism, because statistics alone do not erase atmosphere. The mountains remain, the language remains, the sense of continuity remains. In the broader arc of Rh-negative blood history, the Basque case became a focal point not because it proved anything supernatural, but because it embodied convergence, a rare language, a distinct cultural identity, a higher than average frequency of Rh-negative blood. When several unusual elements gather in one place, the human mind leans toward narrative. In the tone of ancient mysteries for sleep, let us linger in that convergence. Euskara predates the Roman conquest. It survived imperial administration, medieval kingdoms, and modern nation-states. While surrounding regions shifted linguistically and politically, Basque communities maintained a thread of identity that resisted total assimilation. To historians and anthropologists, this endurance is remarkable. To geneticists, it is instructive. Relative isolation over long periods can preserve ancestral markers that elsewhere become diluted through migration and mixing. In that sense, the Basque population acts almost like a time capsule, not frozen in time, but layered with continuity. When researchers examined mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome markers in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, they found that Basque populations shared many genetic similarities with neighboring Iberian groups, but also displayed certain distinct frequencies in specific haplogroups. This does not indicate separate species or secret origin. It indicates demographic history shaped by terrain, marriage patterns, and limited external influx. The elevated frequency of Rh-negative blood fits within this broader context. It is one thread woven into a larger fabric of regional genetics. And yet, emotionally, it feels larger, because we are drawn to lost worlds. The idea that somewhere in Europe, between France and Spain, lives a people whose language cannot be traced to any major family, whose blood type distribution deviates from global averages, and whose cultural memory stretches beyond empires, creates a sense of exclusivity. It invites the listener to feel like an explorer stepping into a preserved enclave of antiquity. This is the subtle viral engine beneath the story. Not fear, not superiority, but discovery. The pleasure of uncovering something that seems hidden in plain sight. But as we remain grounded, we see that the Basque mystery is not about isolation from humanity. It is about continuity within humanity. The Basque are not outsiders to the human story. They are a deeply rooted chapter within it. Their elevated Rh-negative frequency does not separate them from the rest of us. It illustrates how variation distributes unevenly across geography. In some regions, a trait rises above the global average. In others, it recedes. Across the world, countless populations display unique combinations of genetic markers shaped by climate, migration, and history. The Basque case became symbolic because it combined biological distinctiveness with cultural resilience. And resilience is powerful. It gives the impression of something ancient and preserved. In the rhythm of history for sleep, let us soften the edges of myth without stripping away wonder. The wonder is real. A language isolate surviving millennia is extraordinary. A population maintaining continuity across invasions and political upheavals is remarkable. A regional concentration of Rh-negative blood is scientifically intriguing. But none of these elements require extraterrestrial ancestry or hidden elite lineage. They require patience to understand how geography sculpts genetics. Imagine standing at the foothills of the Pyrenees at dusk. The air cool, the sky fading from gold to deep blue. Generations have lived and died here speaking Euskara, marrying within valleys, passing down both words and alleles. Over time, patterns solidified, not by design, not by secret knowledge, but by repetition. The mountains did not create superhumans, they preserved continuity, and in that preservation, certain traits became more visible. As this chapter closes, perhaps the Basque mystery reframes the entire conversation. Rh-negative blood is not a sign of separation from evolution. It is evidence of evolution's texture. Some threads cluster, some disperse, some remain more prominent in one valley than another. The real secret is not hidden power, it is population history written quietly in cells. And as you drift toward rest, let the mountains remain in your imagination. Let the idea settle gently that sometimes what feels like a lost world is simply a well-preserved chapter of our shared human story.
And when mountains and monarchs no longer satisfy the hunger for explanation, the sky begins to whisper. This is often the moment in any mystery when science pauses and myth leans forward. When data feels incomplete, imagination fills the horizon. In the continuing arc of Rh-negative blood history, there comes a chapter where biology stretches toward the cosmos. When people ask, quietly or boldly, what if the difference did not originate here at all? What if those who lack the Rh factor carry an imprint from something older than earthly evolution? In the soft cadence of Sumerian mythology sleep, let us enter this idea not as believers nor as skeptics, but as listeners to an ancient story. The Sumerians, among the earliest known civilizations of Mesopotamia, left behind clay tablets inscribed with cuneiform writing. Within those texts appear references to beings called the Anunnaki. In traditional interpretations, the Anunnaki were deities associated with the heavens and the underworld, powerful figures who shaped the fate of cities and kings. But in the 20th century, alternative readings began to circulate. Some writers suggested that the Anunnaki were not symbolic gods, but visitors, that the myths encoded memory of contact, that humanity itself may have been altered. In certain corners of speculation, Anunnaki history became intertwined with genetic narratives. The hypothesis unfolded like this: if most humans share the Rh antigen with primates, and a minority do not, perhaps that minority represents an ancient genetic intervention. Perhaps those from the sky left a biological signature. Perhaps the pregnancy paradox itself was evidence of incompatible lineages. It is a compelling narrative. It transforms molecular variation into cosmic inheritance. It turns immunology into interstellar legacy. And for many, the appeal lies not in proof, but in possibility. To imagine that within one's blood flows a fragment of the stars is profoundly romantic. In the rhythm of a sleep documentary, we do not mock this longing, we explore it gently. Throughout human history, when confronted with unexplained phenomena, cultures have often turned upward. The sky represents origin, mystery, transcendence. Lightning was once divine anger. Comets were omens. The heavens carried meaning long before telescopes reduced them to physics. The Sumerians, like other ancient peoples, used myth to encode cosmology. The Anunnaki descended from the heavens. They instructed humanity. They established order. In traditional scholarship, these stories are understood as theological and symbolic. But in the modern era, especially after the rise of the ancient astronaut hypothesis in the 1960s and 70s, reinterpretations flourished. Writers such as Erich von Däniken popularized the idea that extraterrestrials influenced early civilizations. In that imaginative framework, genetic manipulation became a recurring motif. And Rh-negative blood, already rare and biologically distinct, found itself woven into that cosmic tapestry. It is important to note, calmly and clearly, that no peer-reviewed genetic research supports extraterrestrial origin of any human blood type. The Rh factor is well understood in terms of gene expression on chromosome 1. Its absence is explained through inherited alleles and population dynamics. But the emotional narrative persists because it answers a deeper human impulse, the impulse to feel chosen, to feel connected to something beyond terrestrial randomness. In ancient mysteries for sleep, we allow that impulse to breathe without allowing it to replace evidence. Imagine for a moment a Sumerian night, oil lamps flickering against mud brick walls, priests reciting hymns to sky gods, stories passed from mouth to mouth shaping identity. Thousands of years later, those same stories are read through the lens of modern genetics. The gap between clay tablet and DNA sequencing is immense, yet both are attempts to explain origin, one through metaphor, the other through molecular detail. And perhaps the true wonder lies not in alien ancestry, but in humanity's relentless creativity in telling its own beginnings.
And yet, even when science answers with chromosomes and alleles, the stars do not fully retreat. They remain suspended above the narrative, not as evidence, but as metaphor. Because the ancient astronaut hypothesis does not survive on data alone, it survives on longing. In the continuing thread of Rh-negative blood history, the idea that a minority of humanity might carry a trace of something other speaks less to biology and more to identity. To imagine that the absence of the Rh antigen is not merely genetic variation, but a cosmic signature, transforms ordinary inheritance into epic mythology. In the quiet rhythm of Sumerian mythology sleep, we let that transformation unfold gently. Consider why such stories persist. Humanity has always framed difference as origin. When a group speaks a unique language, we search for lost continents. When a population carries a rare trait, we search for intervention. When ancient texts describe beings descending from the sky, we reinterpret them through the lens of spacecraft rather than symbolism. The Anunnaki in traditional Mesopotamian scholarship were part of a divine hierarchy within Sumerian cosmology. They governed fate, water, fertility, kingship. Their stories reflected agricultural cycles, political power, and existential questions. But in modern retellings, they became engineers, genetic architects, visitors who altered early humans to accelerate development. Within that imaginative framework, Rh-negative blood becomes a marker of divergence. The pregnancy paradox becomes evidence of incompatible lineages. The Basques become descendants of sky gods. royal blood becomes diluted celestial heritage. It is a sweeping narrative. It stretches from ancient clay tablets to modern DNA testing kits. It connects Sumer to satellites. It transforms ancient mysteries for sleep into cosmic epics. But as we rest within this story, we must ask gently, what is the function of myth? Myth does not require factual precision to carry emotional truth. It provides meaning where randomness feels unsettling. Evolution, with its mutations and drift, can feel impersonal. Cosmic ancestry feels purposeful. To belong to a lineage touched by the stars feels more dignified than to belong to the statistical fluctuations of population genetics. And yet, the deeper beauty may lie precisely in that statistical complexity. The absence of the Rh factor can be traced through gene variants inherited across generations. Population studies show how migration, isolation, and intermarriage shape frequency. There is no unexplained fragment in the human genome that defies terrestrial origin. Every sequence aligns with evolutionary pathways we continue to map. But the persistence of the ancient astronaut narrative reveals something equally important about us. We are storytellers before we are scientists. We seek connection between heaven and earth. We look upward when we feel small. The sky becomes canvas for our questions. In the soft tone of a sleep documentary, imagine a Sumerian observer gazing at the night sky. Without telescopes, without astrophysics, the stars appear alive. They move with intention. They shimmer with mystery. It is natural to imagine descent. It is natural to imagine visitation. Those interpretations were not foolish. They were frameworks available at the time. Thousands of years later, we possess genetic sequencing, comparative genomics, evolutionary biology. Our frameworks have shifted, but the emotional impulse remains the same. We want origin stories that elevate us. In that sense, the ancient astronaut hypothesis is less about aliens and more about aspiration. It reflects humanity's desire to see itself as part of a grander design, to feel that difference signals destiny. But as we gently close this chapter, perhaps the most grounding truth is this: we do not need extraterrestrial intervention to explain variation. We do not need divine engineering to explain Rh-negative blood. Evolution itself is vast enough. Over hundreds of thousands of years, small mutations accumulate. Traits spread unevenly. Some persist, some vanish. The pregnancy paradox, the Basque concentration, the royal intrigue all fit within the tapestry of natural history, and that tapestry is already extraordinary. As you drift toward rest, let the cosmos remain vast, but let your understanding remain anchored. The stars inspire wonder. Genetics provide structure. Between the two lies imagination, weaving connections. The Anunnaki do not need to have rewritten our DNA for us to feel awe. We are already the product of billions of years of cosmic and biological evolution. The real superpower may not be alien blood, but human curiosity. The ability to gaze at both microscope and constellation and ask the same question: where do we come from? And in that question, gently, peacefully, we find continuity rather than conspiracy.
And once the stars have been allowed to fade gently back into the night, the focus returns to something closer, more intimate, more personal. Not the heavens, not ancient tablets, not royal courts or mountain valleys, but the body, the mind, the quiet, private experience of being different. Because for many people who discover they carry Rh-negative blood, the question does not end with ancestry. It becomes inward. If my blood is rare, am I rare in other ways? This is where Chapter 7 begins. not only blood. Those who carry Rh-negative blood often report strangely heightened senses. That is the hook whispered across forums, books, and late-night conversations. In the evolving conversation around Rh-negative traits, patterns emerge that feel both flattering and mysterious. Higher than average IQ scores, lower baseline body temperature, vivid dreams, strong intuition, sensitivity to light and sound, a tendency toward green or blue eyes, a feeling of being slightly out of step with the crowd. In the soft cadence of History for Sleep, we explore these claims without rushing to crown or dismiss them. The human mind has a deep desire for pattern recognition. When a biological minority represents roughly 15% of the global population, it creates fertile ground for identity formation. To belong to 15% feels statistically significant, small enough to feel special, large enough to feel validated. Within personality types history, we have seen this pattern repeatedly. Astrology signs, Myers-Briggs categories, Enneagram types. Each system offers a framework for self-recognition. Each offers language to articulate difference. Rh-negative blood entered that landscape not as a personality system, but as a biological marker. Yet gradually, narrative attached itself. Online communities began sharing experiences. People noticed that many Rh-negative individuals seemed introspective, imaginative, analytical. Some reported being more emotionally sensitive. Others described heightened empathy. The conversation expanded beyond hematology into psychology. And this is where we must move carefully. Scientifically, there is no robust evidence linking the Rh factor to intelligence, intuition, or personality type. The genes responsible for the Rh antigen do not directly regulate cognition or temperament. They influence red blood cell surface proteins. That is their domain. Yet culturally, the association persists. Why? Because rarity invites meaning. If you discover you belong to a minority defined by biology, it is tempting to ask whether that biology influences perception. It is comforting to believe that difference carries advantage. Lower body temperature, for example, is sometimes reported anecdotally among Rh-negative individuals. Some suggest this indicates metabolic variation. However, large-scale medical research does not confirm a consistent temperature difference linked to Rh status. Eye color correlations also circulate frequently. Blue and green eyes are more common in populations with higher Rh-negative frequency, particularly in parts of Europe. But correlation does not equal causation. Both traits can coexist due to shared regional ancestry rather than direct genetic linkage. And yet, even with scientific caution, the emotional resonance remains powerful. Imagine discovering that something in your blood is statistically uncommon. It invites reflection. You might revisit your childhood memories. Did you feel more observant, more sensitive? Did you sense subtle shifts in atmosphere others ignored? Once a narrative is introduced, memory reorganizes around it. This is not deception, it is human cognition seeking coherence. In the gentle tone of a sleep documentary, we acknowledge both dimensions, the measurable biology and the lived experience. Perhaps the real phenomenon is not superhuman ability, but heightened self-awareness triggered by knowledge of rarity. When people believe they are different, they pay closer attention to themselves. They interpret their perceptions through that lens. The result feels amplified. And in that amplification, identity deepens. The question quietly forming in the listener's mind is natural. If I am Rh negative, do I possess these traits? If I am not, do I lack them? This is the subtle ego bait embedded in the narrative. It invites self-identification. It creates a mirror. But as we continue, we must widen that mirror. Intelligence, intuition, empathy, sensitivity, creativity, these are distributed across humanity in complex, overlapping ways. No single blood factor claims ownership. Still, the myth persists because it answers a longing to feel singular, to feel that biology whispers destiny. And in that whisper, many find comfort.
And yet, as the night deepens and the question lingers softly in the mind, something even more interesting begins to unfold. The fascination with Rh negative traits is not only about biology, it is about belonging. It is about the subtle human longing to recognize oneself in a story. When someone reads that Rh negative individuals often report vivid dreams, strong intuition, heightened empathy, or analytical thinking, the heart does not immediately ask for peer-reviewed citations. It asks something quieter. Could that be me? This is where the viral energy of self-identification quietly lives, not in evidence, but in resonance. In personality types history, we have repeatedly seen how powerful it is when a framework gives language to internal experience. People want mirrors. They want patterns that make their inner world feel seen. The Rh negative narrative offers such a mirror. It suggests that if you have ever felt slightly out of place, unusually perceptive, or intensely sensitive to emotional undercurrents, perhaps there is a biological reason. And that possibility feels reassuring, not because it proves superiority, but because it validates difference. Yet the deeper we move into this chapter, the more gently we must hold both wonder and caution. Large-scale scientific studies do not confirm that Rh negative status determines intelligence, intuition, or personality. There is no genetic pathway directly connecting the Rh factor to cognitive function or sensory acuity. The Rhd gene influences red blood cell surface proteins. It does not encode destiny. But psychology tells us something equally profound. When individuals are told they possess a rare trait, they often experience a shift in self-perception. Awareness heightens, confidence subtly increases, attention sharpens. This is not supernatural, it is human. Expectation can shape experience. Identity can influence behavior. If someone believes they are more intuitive, they may trust their instincts more readily. If they believe they are more analytical, they may engage deeper in problem solving. The narrative becomes self-reinforcing, and that self-reinforcement can feel like proof. In the soft rhythm of a sleep documentary, imagine sitting alone at night, reflecting on your own temperament. Perhaps you have always felt observant, noticing small details others overlook. Perhaps you have been told you're empathetic, sensing mood shifts before words are spoken. Perhaps you have vivid dreams that linger long after waking. Whether you are Rh negative or not, these traits are human traits. They do not belong to a single blood group. They arise from complex interplay between genetics, upbringing, culture, and lived experience. Still, the elegance of the myth persists because it offers coherence. It suggests that inside the body flows a quiet explanation, that something as simple as a blood factor might carry deeper meaning. And there is beauty in that simplicity, even if it is symbolic rather than scientific. The real phenomenon may not be extraordinary physiology, but extraordinary narrative power. When people feel rare, they behave differently. They value their inner world more carefully. They become attentive to nuance.
That attentiveness itself can feel like heightened perception, and in that sense, the belief shapes the reality. As this chapter closes, perhaps the true superpower is not encoded in plasma or antigen absence. Perhaps it is encoded in awareness. The moment you learn something about yourself that feels uncommon, you begin to move through the world differently, more consciously, more reflectively. And that shift can be transformative. The ego bait embedded in the Rh-negative story does not need to deceive to be meaningful. It can function as an invitation to examine your own traits without comparison, to ask not whether your blood makes you special, but how your choices shape your character. In the end, the mystery of Rh-negative traits may say less about biology and more about the universal desire to feel seen, to feel unique yet connected, to feel different yet belonging. And as you drift towards sleep, perhaps allow yourself one gentle thought. Whether your blood is common or rare, the real depth lies in consciousness, in empathy, in curiosity. These are not owned by any antigen. They are shared across humanity. The superpower is not in the blood. It is in the awareness that flows through it.
And just when the story feels as though it has traveled from mountains to monarchs, from ancient tablets to personality myths, it suddenly steps into a laboratory filled with stainless steel and cold white light. The air changes. The mystery is no longer whispered by priests or encoded in royal bloodlines. It hums inside incubators. It flickers on computer screens. Chapter 8 begins with a provocative question. Scientists can clone animals. They can manipulate embryos. They can edit genes with astonishing precision. But could they clone everyone equally? And why do some claim that those with Rh-negative blood resist replication? In the long arc of cloning history, humanity has repeatedly pushed the boundary between natural birth and artificial creation. From the cloning of Dolly the sheep in 1996 to advances in stem cell research and CRISPR gene editing, the idea of duplicating life has shifted from fantasy to technical challenge. Yet even within that progress, cloning remains fragile, inefficient, and unpredictable. Many cloned embryos fail to develop fully. Many pregnancies end early. Nature does not yield easily to replication. And here, quietly, the narrative about Rh-negative blood re-enters. Some speculative voices suggest that cloning attempts involving Rh-negative genetic profiles encounter unusual complications, that the absence of the Rh antigen represents a form of biological resistance, that something about this blood type resists duplication. It is a compelling science fiction angle. It connects ancient origin stories with futuristic biotechnology. It bridges biological mysteries with modern ambition. In the tone of a sleep documentary, we approach this idea slowly. First, it is important to ground ourselves. There is no verified scientific evidence showing that Rh-negative individuals are inherently more difficult to clone than Rh-positive individuals. The Rh factor is a specific antigen expression on red blood cells. Cloning, particularly somatic cell nuclear transfer, depends on the integrity of nuclear DNA and epigenetic reprogramming. The presence or absence of the Rh antigen does not fundamentally alter the cloning mechanism itself. However, the broader truth about cloning is already mysterious enough. Cloning is not photocopying. It is not simple duplication. When scientists transfer a nucleus into an enucleated egg cell, the cell must reprogram the DNA to an embryonic state. That process is delicate. Epigenetic markers must reset.
Developmental timing must align precisely. Small irregularities can cascade into failure. In that fragility, people see resistance. When outcomes are inconsistent, imagination fills the gap. The notion that certain genetic profiles resist replication taps into an ancient intuition, that nature protects some boundaries more fiercely than others. Throughout cloning history, success rates have been low. In many animal species, only a small percentage of cloned embryos survive to birth. Even those that do sometimes exhibit health complications. The technology is improving, but it remains complex. So when people hear that Rh-negative blood represents a minority and that cloning is imperfect, the two threads sometimes intertwine in narrative space. The result is a modern myth that this rare bloodline carries a form of biological sovereignty, that it cannot be easily copied, that it resists artificial reproduction. Emotionally, this idea carries power. It frames Rh-negative individuals not just as rare, but as uniquely resilient against technological duplication. It transforms immunohematology into science fiction. And for a culture fascinated by genetic engineering, that transformation feels electrifying. But we must remain calm within the fascination. Biological mysteries do not require embellishment. Cloning is already one of the most complex procedures in modern science. Its challenges stem from cellular reprogramming, mitochondrial compatibility, epigenetic memory, and developmental instability. These issues apply across genetic backgrounds. They are not selective guardians of a single blood factor. Yet the symbolism remains potent. Imagine a future laboratory attempting to replicate every human genome stored in a vast database. Most profiles replicate with variable success, but in whispered rumor, one category consistently falters. Whether factual or fictional, the image lingers. It evokes the idea that some aspects of human biology retain autonomy, that even in an age of biotechnology, nature holds quiet veto power. And in that image, the ancient theme returns: resistance.
And perhaps that is where this modern myth truly lives, not in laboratory results, but in symbolism. The idea that something within the human body resists duplication touches a deep cultural nerve. In a world increasingly defined by replication, mass production, and digital copying, the thought that certain aspects of biology cannot be easily reproduced feels almost sacred. Within the evolving story of cloning history, humanity has learned that creating life artificially is not mastery, it is negotiation. Each attempt at somatic cell nuclear transfer reveals how finely tuned developmental systems are. Cells remember where they came from. Epigenetic markers linger like faint echoes of identity. Reprogramming is not a simple reset button, it is a delicate orchestration. When failure occurs, it does not imply mystical resistance, it reflects complexity. Yet complexity can easily be mistaken for protection, and this is where the Rh-negative narrative gently folds into the larger conversation about biological mysteries. When people hear that cloning remains imperfect and that Rh-negative blood is rare, the two facts can blur together into a story of exceptionalism. It is not that scientists have proven an inability to clone Rh-negative individuals. They have not. It is that the symbolic combination of rarity and technological fragility creates space for imagination, and imagination thrives in uncertainty. Consider the emotional power of the phrase, "nature resists." It suggests agency. It implies intention. It frames biological limitation as defense rather than difficulty. Throughout history, humans have personified nature when confronting boundaries. Storms were angry, droughts were punishments, disease was moral trial. Now, in the era of biotechnology, cloning challenges awaken similar language. When embryos fail to develop, it feels as though life itself pushes back. In this psychological landscape, Rh-negative blood becomes a convenient emblem of resistance, rare, mysterious, slightly outside the statistical majority. It fits the narrative frame. But scientifically, the mechanism of cloning does not discriminate based on the Rh antigen. The success or failure of cloning depends on factors like mitochondrial compatibility, telomere integrity, gene expression timing, and embryonic developmental pathways. These variables are intricate, but they are not selective in a way that targets a single blood factor. Still, the myth persists because it fulfills a deeper desire. In a time when technology promises to replicate nearly everything, humans crave reassurance that something remains uncopyable, that some aspects of identity transcend machinery. The Rh-negative cloning theory becomes less about hematology and more about autonomy. It whispers that biology retains sovereignty, that even in a future of genetic databases and artificial wombs, some threads remain difficult to unravel. In the tone of a sleep documentary, imagine a future historian looking back at our era. They might observe that the early 21st century was obsessed with replication. Digital avatars, artificial intelligence, genetic editing, and within that obsession emerged counter-narratives, stories insisting that certain human elements resist duplication. Perhaps the fascination with Rh-negative cloning difficulty says more about our technological anxieties than about blood itself. We fear becoming interchangeable. We fear losing uniqueness in a reproducible world. So we cling to stories that reaffirm individuality at the cellular level. As this chapter closes, let us return to the quiet center. The true wonder is not that cloning sometimes fails, it is that it sometimes works at all. The orchestration of gene activation, cellular differentiation, and developmental symmetry is astonishingly complex. Nature is not resisting out of intention, it is operating according to rules refined over billions of years, and those rules are intricate beyond imagination. If there is a superpower here, it is not the inability to be cloned. It is the improbable fact that life can replicate itself through natural reproduction with such reliability. Compared to that ancient mechanism, laboratory cloning remains a fragile imitation. As you drift towards sleep, allow the lab lights to dim. Let the stainless steel dissolve into starlight once more. The mystery does not require conspiracy, it requires humility. We are learning to copy fragments of life, but we have not surpassed the elegance of its original design. And whether your blood is Rh positive or Rh negative, the real depth lies not in resistance to cloning, but in the intricate biological choreography that makes every human being unrepeatable in ways no machine can fully capture. And after walking through myth, monarchy, laboratories, and identity, the story returns to something primal: survival. Because beneath every theory about Rh-negative blood, beneath every whisper of cosmic origin or cloning resistance, lies a simpler and older question. Does this difference help us live? Chapter 9 opens with a quiet reversal. Perhaps this is not a flaw in evolution, but an upgrade.
Perhaps the absence of the Rh antigen is not a biological anomaly, but a subtle evolutionary advantage. In the long arc of survival history, traits persist not because they are mysterious, but because they are useful. Natural selection does not reward mythology, it rewards resilience. Across human history, pandemics, parasites, and invisible pathogens have shaped populations more powerfully than kings or empires. Entire genetic patterns shifted because certain individuals survived outbreaks that others did not. This is the engine of evolutionary advantage. In recent decades, some researchers have explored correlations between Rh factor and responses to specific infections. One area of interest has been toxoplasmosis, a parasitic infection caused by Toxoplasma gondii. Studies have suggested that Rh negative and Rh positive individuals may respond differently to the parasite's neurological effects. Some findings propose that Rh positive individuals might exhibit a degree of protective buffering against certain behavioral changes associated with infection. Other interpretations explore nuanced immune responses. The data is complex and far from conclusive, but it has sparked a fascinating conversation, not about superiority, but about variation. Evolution does not aim for perfection. It preserves diversity because environments change. A trait that appears disadvantageous in one context may become protective in another. Consider the example of sickle cell trait providing resistance to malaria in certain regions. What was once seen purely as disorder became understood as adaptation within a specific ecological framework. This is the lens through which some scientists cautiously examine Rh negative blood, not as cosmic anomaly, but as one thread in the intricate tapestry of immune diversity. The idea that Rh negative individuals might respond differently to certain viral or parasitic exposures invites reflection. Could this minority blood factor represent a balanced variation maintained by evolutionary pressure? Could the pregnancy paradox itself reflect deeper immunological complexity? In survival history, the immune system is a battlefield. Viruses evolve, hosts adapt. Genes that enhance survival in one generation propagate into the next. It is not dramatic, it is statistical. Yet within those statistics lie stories of quiet endurance. In the tone of a sleep documentary, imagine early human communities facing waves of infection without modern medicine. Those who survived passed on their genes. Over centuries, subtle differences accumulated. Some immune responses proved slightly more effective against particular pathogens, others less so. The Rh factor is part of this broader immunohematological system. It interacts with the immune response in pregnancy and transfusion contexts, but its evolutionary story may extend further back. Still, caution is essential. Current scientific consensus does not declare Rh negative blood as universally superior in immune defense. It suggests variability, and variability itself is strength. In ecosystems, monocultures collapse easily. Diversity provides resilience. Perhaps the presence of both Rh positive and Rh negative populations reflects an adaptive equilibrium, a biological balance maintained over millennia. The viral energy of this idea is powerful, especially in a post-pandemic world. We are newly aware of vulnerability, newly attentive to immune strength. To imagine that one's blood might carry subtle protective qualities feels reassuring. It transforms difference into validation. It reframes anomaly as advantage. But in our calm exploration, we resist exaggeration. Evolutionary advantage is rarely absolute. It is contextual. It depends on environment, pathogen prevalence, and genetic interplay. The true miracle is not that one blood type conquers all disease. It is that humanity survived countless waves of illness at all. And perhaps the quiet message here is this: Rh-negative blood does not need to be supernatural to be meaningful. If it represents even a slight variation in immune modulation, that alone is extraordinary because it demonstrates the subtlety of evolutionary design.
And as the night deepens, the idea settles more gently into place. Not as triumph, not as superiority, but as quiet resilience. Because if there is any real superpower hidden within the story of Rh-negative blood, it may not be cosmic ancestry or cloning resistance. It may be adaptability. In the broad landscape of evolutionary advantage, survival rarely belongs to the strongest. It belongs to the flexible, to those whose biology allows them to respond slightly differently when the environment shifts. Across survival history, humanity has endured ice ages, plagues, migrations, famine, and microscopic enemies too small to see. No single genetic profile carried us through every catastrophe. What carried us forward was diversity, genetic variation functioning like a vast biological library, offering multiple responses to the same threat. In that sense, the existence of Rh-negative blood within the global population is not an error. It is part of that library, a subtle alternative configuration within the immune system. Some researchers have explored how Rh factor status may influence susceptibility or behavioral response to infections such as toxoplasmosis. The findings remain nuanced and sometimes contradictory, but they highlight something important. Immune responses are not identical across all individuals. Small differences can influence inflammation levels, pathogen interaction, and neurological effects. These differences do not create invincibility, they create variation, and variation is evolution's insurance policy. In a post-pandemic world, this perspective carries emotional weight. We have collectively felt how fragile health can be, how invisible pathogens can reshape societies overnight. To imagine that within the bloodstream lies even a slight modulation of immune response feels comforting. It reframes difference as contribution. If 15% of humanity carries Rh-negative blood, that minority represents an evolutionary experiment that persisted. Traits do not remain for tens of thousands of years without reason. They remain because they do not prevent survival, and sometimes because they quietly assisted under certain conditions. Still, balance is essential. Current medical consensus does not classify Rh-negative status as a broad-spectrum antiviral shield. It is not a magical immunity badge, but it may reflect part of a larger evolutionary mosaic. The immune system is not a single switch. It is a dynamic network of signaling pathways, antigen recognition, inflammatory cascades, and adaptive memory. The Rh factor plays a role primarily in transfusion compatibility and pregnancy immune interactions, yet it exists within the broader architecture of immune biology. And within that architecture, even small differences matter. In the rhythm of a sleep documentary, imagine generations of ancestors standing at the edge of unknown epidemics. Some fall ill, some recover. Those who recover pass forward their genes. Over centuries, subtle immunological balances stabilize, not dramatically, not heroically, quietly. The true resilience of humanity was never about one superior trait. It was about coexistence of many traits, Rh-positive and Rh-negative populations evolving side by side, each contributing to the adaptive spectrum. The narrative that once framed Rh-negative blood as anomaly now softens into something more grounded. It may not be an upgrade in the sense of hierarchy, it may be an upgrade in the sense of complexity, an added dimension in the biological equation. And complexity, in evolutionary terms, is strength. Because when the environment changes, uniformity struggles, diversity adapts. As this chapter closes, perhaps the most reassuring thought is this: you do not need to be rare to be resilient. And if you are rare, you are not isolated. You are part of a long evolutionary conversation,
a dialogue between genes and environment that has unfolded across survival history for tens of thousands of years. The strength is not in one factor, it is in the shared resilience of humanity.
And just when you think rarity has reached its limit, the story descends one level deeper into the quiet mathematics of blood. If Rh-negative blood feels uncommon, then Rh-null is something else entirely. It has been called golden blood, not because it glows, not because it grants immortality, but because it is the rarest blood type ever recorded. Fewer than 50 documented individuals in the world are known to carry it. In some estimates, around 43. In the long archive of rarest blood type research, Rh-null stands apart as both gift and burden. The hook is almost cinematic. If Rh-negative seemed like a minority, Rh-null feels like a whisper inside that minority, a blood type within a blood type. To understand its rarity, we must return briefly to biology. Most people, whether Rh positive or Rh negative, still possess other antigens within the Rh blood group system. The Rh system is complex, involving multiple antigens beyond the familiar D antigen. Rh-null individuals, however, lack all Rh antigens entirely. Not just the D factor, but the entire Rh complex. From a transfusion perspective, this makes their blood uniquely valuable. Because they lack Rh antigens, their red cells can often be compatible with other rare Rh variants. In emergencies involving patients with complex Rh profiles, golden blood can become life-saving. In that sense, it is precious. It can help almost anyone with Rh system complications. But the paradox is immediate. While Rh-null blood can be given broadly within rare contexts, those who carry it can only safely receive blood from another Rh-null donor. The compatibility that makes it valuable outwardly makes it fragile inwardly. In the world of golden blood type logistics, this creates a network of extraordinary coordination. Identified donors are often asked to store frozen units of their own blood. International cooperation may be required if transfusion becomes necessary. Behind the scientific fascination lies a quieter human reality. To carry the rarest blood type in existence is not a badge of power, it is a responsibility. In survival history, we have often seen that extreme rarity brings vulnerability alongside value. Consider isolated ecosystems where a single genetic line remains. Its uniqueness is extraordinary, but its survival depends on delicate balance. Rh-null individuals live with that awareness. Routine medical procedures require special planning. Travel may carry additional considerations. A simple accident can become logistically complex. And yet, within this vulnerability lies profound symbolism. The term golden blood evokes treasure, wealth, rarity beyond price. But gold, in its pure form, is soft. It bends easily. It requires careful handling. The metaphor becomes almost poetic. The most precious blood type is also one of the most delicate. In the tone of a sleep documentary, imagine discovering that within your veins flows something almost no one else possesses. The knowledge might feel isolating at first, a sense of standing apart, of carrying a biological signature shared by perhaps only a few dozen souls scattered across continents. The internet makes such individuals aware of one another, but geography still separates them. Some Rh-null donors have participated in global registries, quietly supporting transfusion networks that most people never think about. Their existence highlights how complex the human blood system truly is. Beyond ABO, beyond Rh positive and negative, there exists an intricate architecture of antigens and compatibility layers.
And within that architecture, rarest blood type stories reveal both scientific marvel and human fragility. There is something humbling about this chapter. It strips away conspiracy and cosmic narrative. It replaces them with biology at its most precise. No aliens, no secret bloodlines, just a mutation in the Rh gene complex that removes antigen expression entirely. And yet the emotional impact may be greater than any myth, because here rarity is measurable, and measurable rarity brings responsibility.
And as we move deeper into this final layer of rarity, something profoundly human begins to emerge. Golden blood is not only a biological classification, it is a lived reality. Behind every statistical estimate of fewer than 50 individuals lies a name, a family, a daily routine shaped quietly by awareness. To carry the rarest blood type in the world means living with both extraordinary value and extraordinary caution. In the broader conversation of golden blood type research, doctors often describe Rh null donors as irreplaceable, not in a mythic sense, but in a logistical one. If one of them requires transfusion, the global network must respond. Frozen units must be located. Transportation must be coordinated across borders. What sounds dramatic in narrative is simply practical medicine in reality. Yet even practicality carries emotional weight. Imagine knowing that your blood could save lives in rare and complex cases, and at the same time knowing that if you needed help, only a handful of others could help you. That duality is not glamorous, it is sobering. In the long arc of survival history, extreme scarcity has always carried both reverence and risk. A rare mineral is treasured, but it must be guarded. An endangered species is celebrated, but it remains vulnerable. Rh null exists at this intersection. Its biological uniqueness offers compatibility advantages in certain rare transfusion scenarios, yet it exposes its carrier to fragility. And fragility is not weakness, it is precision. The immune system, in its intricate design, balances recognition and tolerance. Remove the entire Rh antigen system, and compatibility shifts dramatically. The body becomes universal in one direction and highly selective in the other. That asymmetry is scientifically fascinating, but emotionally, it teaches something quieter. Value does not eliminate vulnerability. Often, it increases it. In the tone of a sleep documentary, imagine a person discovering through routine blood testing that they possess this rarest blood type. At first, perhaps disbelief, then curiosity, then the slow realization that this is not merely a statistic, it is a responsibility. They may be asked to donate strategically. They may be contacted in emergencies. Their blood may travel further than they ever do. There is something almost poetic about that. A small biological variation connecting strangers across continents. No myth required, no conspiracy needed, just quiet interdependence. The term golden blood carries symbolic resonance. Gold has historically represented purity, wealth, and permanence. Yet in its purest form, gold is soft and must be alloyed to gain strength. The metaphor deepens. The rarest blood type reminds us that purity alone is not power. Strength often comes from interaction, from network, from cooperation. Rh null individuals rely on international registries. Those registries rely on communication. Communication relies on trust, and trust is the true connective tissue of survival history. If earlier chapters explored identity, mythology, and evolutionary advantage, this chapter narrows into humility. It shows that the rarest blood type is not a throne, it is a bridge. It exists not to elevate its carriers above humanity, but to link them more tightly to it. And perhaps that is the quiet lesson beneath the numbers. Being rare does not mean being alone in importance. It means being part of a delicate web. The fascination with extreme scarcity often tempts us toward romanticism, but reality is subtler. golden blood does not make its carriers invincible, it makes them necessary within specific contexts, and necessity is a different kind of power. Not dominance, not superiority, contribution. As you drift toward rest, allow this final image to settle gently. Somewhere in the world, perhaps at this very moment, a unit of golden blood rests frozen in a medical facility. It waits. It may never be needed, or it may one day move swiftly across borders to sustain a life. Within that quiet possibility lies the essence of the story. Not superpower, not cosmic ancestry, but interdependence. The rarest blood type in the world is precious not because it separates, but because it connects. And in that connection, softly and humbly, the mystery finds its most human conclusion.
And now, as the journey gently slows, we return to where it always began. Not in a laboratory, not in an ancient temple, not in a royal palace or a mountain valley, but in you. Whether your blood is Rh positive, Rh negative, or something rarer still, history flows quietly within your veins like a whisper from the past. That is the closing hook, soft and steady. Because beyond every theory we explored, beyond every myth of superpower or evolutionary advantage, lies a simpler and more profound truth. You are the continuation of survival history. From the first chapter of Rh-negative blood history, we traced the anomaly that seemed to defy expectation. We followed scientists into the laboratories of Karl Landsteiner. We watched the pregnancy paradox unfold with both tragedy and resilience. We walked through royal courts, Basque valleys, Sumerian skies, cloning facilities, immune responses, and the delicate network of golden blood. Each chapter offered a lens, some scientific, some speculative, some poetic. But together, they revealed something larger than the Rh factor itself. They revealed the human story. In calm history, the most enduring narratives are not about superiority. They are about continuity. The Rh antigen is one molecular detail within an immense biological symphony. Its presence or absence shaped transfusion science, influenced pregnancy medicine, and sparked cultural imagination. But it did not divide humanity into separate destinies. Instead, it highlighted how small variations can generate vast stories. In Sleep Stories for Adults, we often return to this idea, that history is not only something that happened long ago, it is something that breathes through us. Every gene you carry traveled through countless ancestors. Every blood cell circulating in your body represents an unbroken chain of survival stretching back tens of thousands of years. Think for a moment about that invisible lineage. Ice ages passed, empires rose and collapsed, plagues swept continents, technologies emerged, and through it all, the simple mechanism of reproduction quietly continued. Cells divided, traits propagated. The Rh factor, whether present or absent, was passed forward not as destiny, but as possibility. We searched for superpowers. We examined evolutionary advantage. We explored conspiracy and science fiction. And yet the most astonishing revelation may be this: life persisted. Not because one blood type triumphed over all others, but because diversity endured. because adaptation was shared, because no single variation carried the entire burden of survival. If you carry Rh-negative blood, you are part of a minority that has quietly endured across centuries. If you do not, you are part of the majority that has done the same. Neither position diminishes the other. Together, they form balance. In calm history, balance is often the true miracle. The immune system balances aggression and tolerance. Evolution balances mutation and stability. Human societies balance individuality and cooperation. Blood, in its silent circulation, mirrors that equilibrium. As the narrative softens toward its conclusion, let us release the need to categorize ourselves as special or ordinary. Both words dissolve under deeper reflection. The fact that you are alive at all is extraordinary. The fact that your heart continues to pump, your lungs continue to draw breath, your cells continue to replicate, is more miraculous than any theory about alien ancestry or golden blood. And perhaps this is the gentle closure the story offers. Superpower is not hidden in antigen absence. It is present in existence itself.
And as the final moments of this calm history settle into stillness, let us allow the story to exhale. We began with a question that felt almost rebellious. How could a blood type exist that seems to challenge evolutionary expectation? Along the way, we wandered through science and speculation, through laboratories and legends, through golden blood and survival history. Yet what remains now was not tension, it is clarity. The human body is not a riddle to conquer, it is a narrative unfolding slowly across millennia. Whether Rh-negative blood represents a subtle variation, an evolutionary balance, or simply one thread in the genetic tapestry, it does not divide us into separate stories. It reminds us that difference is woven into unity. In sleep stories for adults, closure does not arrive as a dramatic revelation. It arrives as recognition. Recognition that the most powerful truths are often quiet. Blood carries oxygen. Blood carries nutrients. Blood carries memory encoded in DNA, but it also carries continuity. Every heartbeat echoes countless heartbeats before it. Every breath continues an ancient rhythm older than language. Perhaps that is the invisible connection this chapter offers. Not a secret lineage, not a hidden superpower, but a shared inheritance of survival. The curiosity that drove us through myths of Anunnaki, through cloning laboratories, through the loneliness of golden blood, was never really about superiority. It was about meaning. Humans seek meaning in difference because difference feels personal. Yet the deeper meaning lies in shared fragility. Rh-positive and Rh-negative bodies respond differently in certain contexts, but both depend on the same delicate immune balance. Both rely on the same cardiovascular precision. Both rest under the same night sky. In calm history, the sky has always been the ultimate witness. It watched early humans shiver in glacial winds. It watched civilizations carve stories into stone. It watched scientists peer through microscopes and satellites launch into orbit. Through all of it, blood continued its quiet circulation. No fanfare, no mythology required. The final retention of this story is not suspense, it is peace. Peace in knowing that whatever your blood type, you are not an anomaly. You are evidence of resilience. You are the result of successful adaptation repeated across generations. The superpower is not hidden in a rare antigen, it is revealed in endurance. As you prepare to sleep, allow the narrative to soften into gratitude.
Gratitude for the immune system that guards you silently. Gratitude for ancestors whose names you will never know, but whose cells contributed to yours. Gratitude for the complexity of life that requires no embellishment to be astonishing. The history for sleep we have traveled tonight is not only about Rh-negative blood, it is about the miracle of continuity. And as the story fades, imagine your bloodstream as a quiet river, not dramatic, not mystical, just steady, carrying forward the story of survival into tomorrow. Rest knowing that you are part of something ancient, intricate, and beautifully interconnected. Good night.